Hello viewers, Super GT here. Now Gran Turismo Sport has a brand new circuit in the game, Dragon Trail Gardens. So we're going to give it a go here. This is my first race around this circuit and I'm in the process still of trying to rebuild my damaged reputation in the game. I went down briefly to a C sportsmanship rating, so we're going to try to repair that by having a good race hopefully around here. So let's go for a lap initially. I'll go through the new circuit. So Dragon Trail, of course, it already exists in the game. It's set in Croatia. This is it's an entirely different circuit. It doesn't really take any parts of the old circuit, and it's actually a very nice track to drive from my experience in practice. And you can see here qualifying in third. So still, even though I'm in a B-rated race, there's still some faster people than me. You can see the leader in the Porsche, which from the leaderboard seems to be the fastest car. Typically is in Group 3. We're going to do our best to overhaul the two guys ahead. I'm driving the Lexus RCF, and yes, it's a Group 3 race. So this section here, very technical section. It's actually very difficult to get right. You go down this dip and then into this very long multi-apex right-hander, similar if you like to the turn 8 at Turkey on the Formula 1 calendar, or it used to be. It's a very long technical corner preceded by a fast sweeping set of chicanes. In many ways it actually reminds me, I'm not sure if you guys remember the track called Apricot Hill. It actually reminds me somewhat of that. And you can see here set within the mountains, as is Dragon Trail. So set in the same kind of place, but I actually prefer this circuit. I think it's actually a nicer track. So at the end of lap 1, pushing onto the back of the Citroen, and I'm going to look for a way past if we can, and then we can sort of hunt down first place. So it was already, you can see there, got a gap of about 1.5 seconds, so you can always monitor the gap to first place, which is the red number, or sorry, the red box with the white number next to my name on the left hand side. So hovering around about 1.5 at the moment. So, I mean, if you want to have ambitions of winning the race, you want to kind of monitor that gap. Am I losing to the leader? Am I gaining on the leader? A little bit later on the brakes compared to the Citroen. You can see I'm a good couple of car lengths away, or car widths away, from the apex of the hairpin. So this is the tight, twisty, technical section. Not easy to get right at all. So with these kind of corners, you normally want to get the first one right, and then the rest will follow. If you get the first one wrong, then you kind of put yourself in a bad way for the rest of the corners. So this is the very long corner, very technical, very difficult to get right. And this car, I'm driving with 1 TCS at the moment, and despite that it still wants to slide, so you do have to really regulate the throttle through that corner especially, but then also through a lot of the other corners, including this final corner here. So it's a long double apex left-hander, very open corner actually, and you can take quite a lot of speed, carry quite a lot of speed through that one. So that's lap 2. It's a 12-lap race. Crossing the line here, still just behind the Citroen. You can see they're just the Porsche going just out of shot. Still about 1.5 seconds ahead. So in fact, on that last lap around, the guy ahead in the Citroen set the fastest lap. So technically second is gaining on first, although I think he's made a bit of a mistake through this chicane section. So lots of technical sections through the circuit. It's actually a circuit I really do like, and I've said it many times before as we go past a very nice Red Bull livery. Looks a bit like the Toro Rosso F1 car. I've said it many times before, Polyphony really do know how to create these fictional circuits. I think in many ways they're often better than the real tracks. But we're going to try to reel in these guys. Still early days at the moment in this race. Mustn't forget about the people behind. The 4th place is just 1.5 seconds behind. So about the same gap from me to the leader, you can see there. So the leader actually a little bit wide through this long right-hander. And I get the gap down to about 1.4 briefly through there, but then back up to 1.6 again. So actually I'm not having the best of final sectors, as you can see the Citroen gapping me quite considerably. Now he's going to look to start challenging for the lead, which is probably a good thing for me. They can start fighting, and that might bring me a little bit closer with less effort. Now I am making a conscious effort here to try to fuel save, so I'm not really changing the fuel mix on the bottom right of the screen there, so I'm leaving it on 1, but I'm making an effort to just short shift a little bit more than I normally would. So many people have noticed that I'm normally revving the crap out of the car, but now I'm normally shifting when the bar reaches about halfway across, so or a little bit more, but not quite letting it go all the way to the end. So just short shifting a little bit. You don't really lose too much time, but you do save a little bit of fuel. A little bit wide into the hairpin once again, but you can kind of round off the corner, take a more gradual exit. So just looking behind briefly, you can see another Lexus behind with a penalty, lurking ominously in the distance there. Actually, he's not too far behind, probably about a second there, so that's something to consider. We mustn't really just focus on going forwards. You know, if a car comes from behind, then you're going to have to really think about your strategy. This is one of those races though where any time loss is going to be absolutely crucial. We see just how close it is between the top 4 here. We really are very, very well matched on lap time, so if I were to get in a battle with this 4th place guy and lose a second, that could end the race, or it could end my ambitions of winning the race. Well, obviously it won't end the race, but could end my chances of winning. You can see it's just so close that any mistake, even just a couple of attempts, it really could play a massive part in the overall result. So we're going to just have to be absolutely as consistent as possible. And in many of these races, it isn't always about who's the quickest, it's just about who can be quite quick but very consistent, make not many mistakes at all. And also, of course, massive factor in any Gran Turismo race that involves a fuel strategy is fuel saving. Can I perhaps save some fuel? We are going to have to fuel. As we take a quick look behind there, you see just how close the Lexus is behind. So fuel does add, of course, another element into the race. So although I am a little bit off here, so about just under 3 seconds off the lead, if I can just save a little bit more fuel, I could reel that back in during the pit stops. We are going to have to pit. I've nearly depleted 50% of fuel, and I'm not quite going to be able to make it to the end without stopping, unless I went for extreme fuel saving, but I don't think that really works. It's normally better just to go in and get a bit of fuel. You don't actually lose a huge amount of times on the pit stops in this game. It seems that once you leave your pit box, you immediately appear at the end of the pit lane, so you do cut off quite a bit of time. That in real life, obviously, you'd have to drive down the pit lane. You can't teleport to the end, but in this game, yeah, you just cut off a couple of seconds at least. So this is the situation here at the end of lap 5. We're looking to go in to the pits at the end of the next lap. So of course, here's our quick maths lesson of the day. 12 divided by 2 equals 6. So this is the 6th lap at the end of it. Once we've completed 6 laps, we shall go in. That's exactly halfway. So we can split our strategy exactly in half. And it's better. It's easier to work out how many laps of fuel you need to continue the second half of the race. And of course, you can work out how bad your tyres will be, because it's going to be the same in both stints, presumably. So then, once again, the German in the Lexus getting fairly close. He's got a penalty, but of course we don't really want him to get ahead, because that's just time loss. It's just, we don't want to get in a battle and really slow ourselves down too much. You see, I'm just falling off this battle with the top 2. Over the last couple of laps, I haven't perhaps quite adapted my driving style enough, as your tyres do start to deplete in tread. You can see perhaps that my front right is depleting the most. Typically that's going to happen on an anti-clockwise circuit, as this is. There are a couple of, especially the first corner, very attacking long corner, which you're going to get a lot of tyre wear through that kind of corner. So then into the final turn, lap number 6, so we're going to come into the pit lane here. We can take a quick look at our fuel. So just going to 40% there. And the leaders, 26 and 21. So that is, that's good news. I'm going to gain a little bit during this pit stop. I only use 60%, so I only need to put in another 20 to get back up to 60. There we go, just going up to about 62%. And on the exit, you can see just how much closer I am now to the Porsche. In fact, where is the Citroen? I can't quite see them. In fact, I think I have jumped him. I'm still in third, but that's only because there is a guy in the lead who didn't stop. So someone's overtaken us and got into the lead, but I think they will have to stop at some point. So the Porsche already with a mistake through the chicane. In fact, I think he was quite weak through that chicane from what I could tell earlier in the race. But in making a mistake there, perhaps he was caught off guard, didn't quite expect that I would get that close that quickly through the pit stops. But now I can start to put the pressure on him and perhaps take over and go into the lead. So you can see there, the first half of the race, I was losing time, but I did do the best job on fuel. So I kind of reclawed that time back. So overall, a good first stint. Didn't look particularly good as the guy is sliding all over the place. I nearly follow him into a big slide. Into the technical right-hander. He's going to go in very narrow and going in very deep. He's going to cut back onto the red stuff. And I'm up the inside into first place, or now second place, which is an effective first once the Frenchman in the lead goes into the pit stops. Unless he's doing a no-stop strategy, in which case he's surely going to have far too much tyre wear and going to have to save far too much fuel. And in fact he pulls over to the left hand side, so now I am effectively in first place, and you can see there the Porsche is not going to give me an easy ride from here to the end as we cross the line to start the 8th lap. 5 more remaining. Can I keep my cool? Can I keep just keep from making mistakes? I haven't really made too many so far, although I haven't driven perfectly, but I haven't really made too many big errors. The car is a little bit slidey on traction. Gonna have to, of course, choose the correct gears through the exits of the corners to make sure you really do get good drive. So of course, coming out of the hairpin that we're about to arrive at, second gear is probably the best, but you do get quite a bit of sliding, so you do have to modulate the throttle a fair amount. Braking just before the 100 board, before the curb, and we're into the apex very nicely. It's going to straighten out of that exit to try to minimise the wheel spin, and we've done a good job of that. So the gap now up to 1 second. So I think the Porsche driver behind not quite having the best outlaps from the pit stops. So that I mean, something like that. I mean, I just came out of the pit lane just behind him, and it seems to have just shaken him off his rhythm a little bit. That can happen. It's just something that can happen in a race. Looking at the gap behind, there it is. So stretching out just to over a second, but I can't get complacent here because, as we saw at the end of the first stint, I was just losing touch with the top two, as I couldn't quite handle the tyre wear as well as the other two guys. Perhaps they were managing the tyres better, or their cars are better on the tyres, one of the two, or both combined. So there we go, crossing the line to begin the 9th lap. You see the gap there to the guys behind just opening up. The Citroen's actually now down in 4th behind the German who was in the Lexus. So I'm not sure what the Citroen driver was thinking there. Perhaps he put in far too much fuel and stayed into the pit lane a little bit too much longer than he really needed to. Onto the back straight, we might have just caught a glimpse there of the Porsche running very wide over the red stuff. Now this is where the gap gets to its absolute biggest, 1.7 seconds. So this is halfway through lap number 9. So that's the gap at its largest extent. But this is now lap number 10, and I'm going to show you the race from here to the end. And this is where I think the Porsche driver is just going to begin to really reel me back in for one final assault on laps 11 and 12. So through this corner, I don't feel totally confident or strong. I do think that Porsche seems to just have much better aero and grip through that corner. So just really doing my best to minimise the time loss, damage limitation in many ways through that kind of corner. You just got to maximise your overall lap time, I guess, and make the most of your car where it is strong, where your opponent is weak. And onto the main straight, just 2 laps remaining. The race is, well, it's coming into fruition very, very much now. It seems to have been a very slow burner, one of those races where you just need to be very patient, and it's going to come to you at the very end. My previous very best race was at Brands Hatch, where it was me catching up with the other guy and then he kind of got pressured. So I need to learn from a lesson there. I need to just make sure I keep my cool here, don't make a silly error, and just hand him and just gift him the race. And again, just looking behind, you can see just how close he is. 3rd place is now the Citroen once again. The Lexus has disappeared from the view, but I think it's only going to be a battle between myself and the Porsche driver for the race win. I think the Citroen driver is actually far too far away now to really affect the result here. He's going to finish third. But with 1.5 laps to go, can I keep my cool? You can see just how close he's getting now through the technical S-bends here. As we come out, he's going to go very wide over the curb, looking for a way by over the white lines, but it didn't quite come out for him the result that he would have intended. So he's going to stay behind for now. I'm coming up into the final corner, just having a look behind. You see just how close he is. I'm going to keep over to slightly to the left-hand side to make sure he goes over to the right-hand side, goes defensive, and into the final turn. Just missing the apex, but he can go very deep and cut back for that second apex. You just see his nose poking into the bottom of the screen. So with 1 lap left to go, the matter of the occasion here is that it's basically a 1 lap showdown between myself and the Porsche driver. He's 1/10 behind. He is very close indeed. In fact, you see again the nose poking into the bottom of the screen. So I just have to keep my cool, braking on the 100 board at the start of that curb, release the brakes, the car turns in nicely, and you don't want to be too greedy through this apex as it will affect you through this one, and you want to have, of course, a very good run onto this straight into a very good overtaking opportunity, probably the best on the circuit, into the tightest corner. So I'm going to go left, make sure he goes to the right hand side. In fact, I'm going to let off the throttle there just to make sure he does go around the outside. And that's a good position. I want him to be on that side. There's no way he can go around the outside of a hairpin. So I'm going to keep the position. And he's looking up the inside into the technical S-bends. Probably not the best place to overtake. So I can just take the normal racing line here. We did see him go for a move on the exit of this corner. So I'm going to make sure I go fully over to the right hand side to make sure he doesn't quite go for it. He's so close though. His car is flashing in and out of my screen, going in very narrow, so having to brake very early, and he thinks about the cutback, and it isn't quite enough room, but there is still one more overtaking opportunity on this lap coming up into the final corner. And is he going to go for it? I'm going to go left hand side to make sure he goes over to the right hand side on the brakes. There's a bit of a tap in the rear end into the final corner, but I've just about kept the car under control. Bit of a slide on the exit, and I've just about got the job done. Wow, that was perilously close, as we're now going to come across the line to win the race. But boy, how close was that? I really had to work really hard for that. In fact, he actually got a penalty there, but I don't really think he deserved it. It was just a bit of a tap into the rear end, into that final corner. But overall, that was such a good race, and really, that Dragon Trail Garden circuit is a really good one. I really do enjoy it. But let me know your thoughts on the race, guys. I do hope you enjoyed it as always. Of course, do subscribe for more of the same and smash the like button if you enjoyed it. I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you as always for watching. Goodbye.
Listen.